Hello guys, welcome back. I hope everyone is doing great. So in today's video, we're going to be doing some sampling, specifically from the house of Guerlain, the L'Art La Matiére line of fragrances. I have 5 samples here. I've been testing them, so it's not a first impression video. It's not the first time that I'm getting my nose on these fragrances. I have some opinions. They're definitely my early impressions of the fragrances, but I think I know what I like and what I don't like. Unfortunately, one of the ones that I love is a discontinued fragrance, but we're still gonna talk about it. And the other one that I like, I ordered a full bottle of, and then there's a third that I'm sort of on the fence. So we'll talk about what they smell like. We'll spray them. I have them on skin. I sprayed them earlier, but we'll spray them again, and I'll give you my impressions of these fragrances. But before we do that, I want to show you guys what I received. My vintage bottle of Mitsuko, Guerlain's Mitsuko. So today is all about Guerlain, and I've become a really big fan of the house. I'm down the rabbit hole of vintage fragrances, which I've mentioned in a few of my videos. I'm a big fan of Chypre fragrances. As you guys know, you know that Amouage's Jubilation 25 is one of my favorites. Then when I tested Diaghilev by Roja Parfum, I was really enamored with the fragrance, and I found a really good price on a discounter, and I ordered a full bottle, which is on the way. And although I have the modern version, one of the latest versions of Mitsuko, I did want to delve into the vintage batches, and I'm really glad that I did. This is absolutely stunning. So this is from the 70s. It's an EDT concentration, and it's not a spray bottle. It's a twist-off cap, and it comes in the zigzag box. I haven't even had the chance to take down the numbers and look up the batch code. I just got this today. But I did know that I was purchasing one from the 70s when I ordered it, and I'm really excited about this. So I did get my nose on this briefly. It just arrived about a couple of hours ago, and I did briefly get my nose on this, and I think it's absolutely stunning. And I can tell you right now, without even doing a full wear of this fragrance, it is definitely different from the modern version that I have. So it was worth the time that it took and the research to get my hands on this. And I have this similar bottle in Shalimar, the same type of bottle, the EDT, and I should be getting that tomorrow. So we'll have a video on this and a comparison to the new version that I have in the EDP. So let's put this here. And let's start with Angelilque Noire, which I ordered a full bottle of because I absolutely loved it. And even though this is the dabber tester, I went through a lot of this actually. I was able to really enjoy this and determine that I thought it was a beautiful vanilla fragrance that I wanted a full bottle of. So let's put this on skin. I had this on earlier. So this one is a 2005 release, so this is not a new fragrance, as you guys know. And it smells so beautiful. It opens with this fresh green vanilla fragrance. You definitely get this high quality vanilla that Guerlain is so known for. It's gorgeous. There's this freshness to it that's so beautiful against this smooth vanilla. It's absolutely stunning. Fragrantica shows a pear note. It's not something that jumps out at me. I'm not sure if you guys pick this up when you smell this fragrance. It definitely opens up fresh, but I get more green. There's this beautiful Angelica note in here that's a little musky, a little peppery, a little herbaceous. So the green against the vanilla is stunning. I wasn't sure about this fragrance when I first tested it because I knew that it was a fresh take on vanilla. And I have a bottle of Queer Beluga, which is this powdery, denser type of vanilla that's a little suede-like. But then I realized that this one would be something different and not the same usual powdery sort of fragrances that I tend to gravitate towards. There is something a little powdery in this. I feel like a lot of the Guerlains are a bit powdery and they're very subtle, elegant fragrances. I mean, that's what they're known for, especially the fragrances in this line. So it's definitely a sophisticated, subdued sort of fragrance that fits into the rest of the fragrances in this collection. It's so smooth and it's so comforting. It's angelic, no pun intended. You have a subtle muskiness. You have a subtle green component to the fragrance. You have a subtle spiciness, like a little bit of that black pepper. It's just gorgeous. I really like this. It's just such a beautiful vanilla fragrance, even though it's a little linear and there's not much going on. There's not too much movement. It's not like this is a fragrance that's changing substantially from the opening to the dry down. It's just a very beautiful, high quality vanilla with these subtle facets that add a little bit of depth to the fragrance. I love this, and after wearing it a few times, I realized that I wanted something like this in my collection, and so a full bottle is on the way, which I'm excited about. So let's turn to the next one, Patchouli Paris. I was really curious about this one. I like patchouli fragrances. I heard good feedback. I heard that this got good reviews, so I wanted to get my nose on it, and the juice here in the tester looks pink, which is really interesting. So I'm guessing the juice in the bottle is pink as well. Let's spray it. I actually wore this to work the other day and I enjoyed it. So this is an interesting fragrance because when I first got my nose on this, I thought it was going to be one type of fragrance, and as it dried down, it turned into something completely different. So the fragrance opens up with this earthy patchouli that's almost a little reminiscent of the patchouli in Javois Psychedelique. Earthy with a chocolatey nuance to it, but that's reminiscent of damp dirt. So it opens up with that type of patchouli, the type that's in Psychedelique or Profumum Rama's patchouli fragrance. But it has this airiness and a muskiness to it. There are aldehydes in here, so it's not as dense as some of those other fragrances, but it does open up as something that seems like a real patchouli fragrance until it starts to dry down. And as this dries down, I get florals, and there's an iris note in here that I absolutely detect as this fragrance dries down. So that earthiness of the patchouli starts to slowly subside as it dries down. And there's something floral behind the patchouli, and you have the iris that gives a little bit of powderiness, and the perfume really changes from the way it opens up. So I like it, actually. I like their take on patchouli. It's different from owning a bottle of Psychedelique or Profumum Rama's patchouli. It centers on patchouli, and patchouli is not just some base note or background note. It also doesn't focus on it like those other fragrances. So if you're not in the mood to wear something that's so patchouli heavy that can bother certain people and be off-putting, that earthiness and that heaviness that comes along with the fragrance in something like Psychedelique, this one is a really nice option, and I'm considering a bottle of this. I'll continue to wear this to determine what I think in terms of turning this into a full bottle, but I really like this fragrance. In the full dry down, I feel that the patchouli is absolutely takes a back seat. I don't know if you guys who have tried this feel the same way. I feel like as the fragrance dries down and you get those florals and the iris comes through, by the time it's fully in its dry down, hours later, the patchouli has taken a backseat to a really nice, powdery, subdued fragrance, which is very typical of the fragrances in the L'Art La Matiére line. I really like this. I enjoy it. I like the way the powderiness that comes from the iris is contrasting the earthiness of the patchouli, but yet I can still enjoy patchouli in here. So in my mind, I feel like it's a great option. So I do own a bottle of Psychedelique, and I barely use it. I hardly use it. And I feel like sometimes I like certain fragrances in concept. I like the idea of them, and I may even love the way they smell. But then practically speaking, I'm not using them. So I'm thinking that maybe a scent profile like Psychedelique is just not something that I'm going to use a lot, even though I like the way it smells. This one, I think, would allow me to wear a patchouli fragrance, but not have something that's so focused on that earthy patchouli that can be a little bit much sometimes. So I like this one, and I think I may want a full bottle of it. It smells great. The strength of the earthiness of the patchouli has already subsided a little bit in these minutes as it's drying down and the iris comes through. But the patchouli hangs in there. It does. It's not that you can't smell the patchouli as you're wearing this as it's drying down. You absolutely can. It just isn't as prominent as it is in the opening. So Patchouli Paris, I'm a fan of. I think it's a great fragrance. So the next one is Peche Mirage, which I think is a very recent release from the house. And I think this one is not my kind of fragrance. So when I heard that this was a peach fragrance, I didn't really have high hopes. I'm not so much into fruity fragrances. But this one, I will say, is not any kind of sweet take on a fruity fragrance. I really don't think that any of these fragrances that we're talking about today, I can't even think of any in the entire line, the L'Art La Matiére collection, that is sugary sweet. None of them are sugary sweet. Tobacco Honey is a very sweet fragrance. It's actually growing on me, by the way. And even that one, the sweetness is not coming from anything saccharine-like or sugary. So this is not a sweet, fruity fragrance, but peach in fragrances is not something that I'm necessarily a fan of. So this one opens up with this combination of peach with black currant, but the peach is definitely what you get. And what I will say is that that black currant note in here is keeping the peach from coming off fresh. So it's not as if you're smelling a fresh peach. A fresh peach is not what comes to mind. I think it's the black currant that's mixing with the fruit that's sort of giving this vibe of a peach that's almost maybe macerated. What I associated it with, actually, when I first smelled this, to be honest, are peaches in the can that are in syrup. Not that it's sweet, but it's not a fresh take on peach. That's the point. It's not a fresh take, which I actually don't mind. And so the fragrance doesn't open up like a bright, fruity fragrance. What I do get, and I had this on skin a few times, what I absolutely get is that it's a peach that's sort of sitting on an amber base. It's a really nicely made fragrance, in my opinion, objectively speaking, even though I'm not crazy about peach in fragrances. This one would not be something that I would purchase a full bottle of, but it is really smooth and it has this sort of powdery consistency. The peach turns into a nice subdued peach that sits on a really nice ambery base. It's a little bit powdery. I can objectively say that it's a really smooth fragrance. As it dries down, that peach is sort of subsiding into this nice powdery fragrance that sits on a really nice ambery base. I get that there's an amber behind the peach. There's an osmanthus note in here, which I think complements the peach. And there's also something leathery in the fragrance. I can't say that this came off like a leathery fragrance until I actually read it in the notes. I did not realize that. I'm not really getting a leather texture either. I am getting something syrupy and ambery behind the peach. And I think it's a well-made fragrance, but for me, I'm not into the fruity fragrances. And even though this one is not sweet, it's not something that would turn into a full bottle for me personally, but it is nice for anyone who likes the idea of a peach fragrance. You might want to get your nose on this. It's not sweet, it's subdued, it's a little powdery, and in my opinion, is an ambery sort of take on the peach. It's an ambery fragrance with a peach note as opposed to being a leathery fragrance. So that's my take, at least. That's how it's coming off to my nose. So you guys can let me know what you think if you've tried it. So the next one that we're going to talk about is a discontinued fragrance that I absolutely love. And I have my eye out for a full bottle, maybe on eBay. If someone is selling a bottle of this, this is Bois D'Armeie. And this is an absolutely stunning fragrance. A few of you recommended this one in the comments to the video on Diptyque's Benjoin Bohème, because this is a really nice fragrance that has benzoin in it. And I was wearing this a few times. The sample is a little defective here, but try to get some out. I was wearing this last week and it's gorgeous. This is leaking all over my arm, but that's okay. It's a nice one. I love this. I love it. It opens up with this beautiful iris. There's a little bit of pepper as well. But the iris is soon followed by the benzoin, and there's myrrh in here, so it's balsamic, it's resinous. The benzoin is sort of giving this syrupy, non-sugary sweetness to the fragrance. The iris is gorgeous. I have no idea why they would discontinue this fragrance. Can someone shed some light? Why do they discontinue these beautiful fragrances? And is there one in the L'Art La Matiére line that is supposed to replace this? I have a sample of Bois D'Armeie. I don't think that one replaces this one. Does it? I don't think so. It's a little sweet. There's something a little vanillic about it, but it's so warm. And it's so beautiful with that iris that's contrasting. It's a little powdery. I really like this. There's something a little fresh about it. I definitely get that pepper that's contrasting the other notes in here. It's just such a beautiful blend of the benzoin and the resinous and the balsamic touches. There's a sweetness, there's that iris, there's that pepper. It's gorgeous. It has a nice fluffy round consistency to it. It's like a cloud. So this is absolutely gorgeous. I agree with you guys that recommended this one in the comments. It's beautiful. I keep getting a different facet every time I put my nose to it. It's definitely a little sweet and it's syrupy, and it's almost like there's a little bit of incense in there too. So I can go on and on about this. It's gorgeous. Too bad it's discontinued. Okay, so the last one, I just need a sip of coffee before we continue. So the last one is Neroli Outrenoire. Is that how you say it? Neroli Outrenoire, which is a neroli fragrance. I was really excited to get my nose on this one, and this is not going to work for me. I'll tell you which neroli fragrance will work for me, and that's Les Indemodables Oranger Sirocco. I need a bottle of that fragrance. I took out the sample recently, and I was wearing it at night. It is really, really a beautiful fragrance. I didn't even realize it. As I was sampling all of the samples in the Discovery set, I ended up with a few bottles. I still haven't gotten Rose de Jamal. I still haven't gotten Vanille Havane. I know I'm getting those. I'm not sure why I ordered 2 others before ordering, especially Rose de Jamal. I really want that one. But I have a feeling that the next one I will order is the Oranger Sirocco. It's a gorgeous, simple, but beautiful, long-lasting neroli fragrance. So back to Guerlain. This one, I will tell you, is not for me because of the tea note in here. So I'm going to spray this on a test strip because I think I ran out of space on my skin. So I am a big coffee drinker, and in the afternoon, usually even though right now it's about 3:30 in the afternoon and I'm having coffee. Usually in the afternoon, I am drinking tea. I try not to drink coffee in the afternoon. And the kind of tea that I drink, and I consume a lot of tea, even in the evenings, is Japanese tea, like jasmine tea. But the one that I really like is the jasmine tea with the toasted rice. And what I really dislike, there is a point to the story here. What I really dislike, and I'm not a fan of, are chamomile teas and black teas and English Earl Grey teas or English teas. I just don't like those types of teas. I don't enjoy them. And there's such an association between your sense of smell and your sense of taste that if I smell tea in fragrances, it turns me off. There's a Musk Milano fragrance that I so wanted to love. There's a leather note in there, and there's a tea, and I'm forgetting the name of it right now. But unfortunately, it didn't work for me because of the tea note, and yet I wanted to love that fragrance. And this one is beautiful, and a lot of people give great feedback on Neroli Outrenoire, and it is a nice fragrance, and there's a neroli and an orange blossom, 2 notes in here, that are done so beautifully, done very well. But the tea note is really, really prominent, and it doesn't go away. I did wear this a few times on skin, and the tea note is there all the way to the dry down. So it's not a fragrance for me. I did want to try it out. I don't know how many of you guys have tried this, if you like this fragrance. Let me know in the comments. It's really pretty. I can objectively say that it's pretty, it's well done, but it's just, like the Peche Mirage, it's just not a fragrance that would turn into a full bottle for me. This has a lot of citrus notes at the top, and it opens up very citrusy. It's balsamic. There's also a petitgrain note in here, which is a really nice complement to the neroli and the orange blossom notes as well. It's also a little musky. There's musk mallow in here, and there are resinous as well as balsamic aspects to the fragrance. So even though objectively speaking, I can say that it's a nice fragrance, it is nice. I like the way the neroli and the orange blossom come through in here. Overall, I guess what's important is what it smells like on my skin when I'm wearing it. And to me, it smells like a fresh fragrance that's also balsamic and resinous, that has some depth to it. It's not just a fresh fragrance. It has some depth to it. The fragrance does have more than just the freshness. And the neroli and the orange blossom are not soapy. Sometimes they go soapy, like Serge Lutens' neroli fragrance is a little bit soapy, in my opinion. This one doesn't do that, but the tea is prominent. So to me, it's a tea-centric neroli fragrance, for sure. So it wouldn't be for me. I was kind of hoping when I got a sample of this that it would be more about the orange blossom and the neroli, and the tea note would be more in the background. I didn't expect that the tea note would be so prominent, but nonetheless it is, so that's fine. There are a lot of other fragrances that I like. Can't like everything, right? So it's good that I did like 3. I love Angelilque Noire. I'm excited to get my new bottle. I like Patchouli Paris. I think it's a great take on the patchouli for someone who doesn't want too much patchouli in the fragrance. And I really like Bois D'Armeie, which unfortunately is discontinued. So that's my take on these fragrances from Guerlain's L'Art La Matiére collection. Let me know in the comments what you guys think of these, if you've gotten your nose on them, if you share some of my opinions, if you disagree. I would love to hear your thoughts on these fragrances. And as always, thank you so much for watching, for your support and your comments. Until next time, bye guys.